Now, the world is becoming a lot less safer for journalists, with one practitioner being killed every 5 days for bringing information to the public. In Ghana, that practitioner, who was added to the global statistic, was assassinated at Medina here in Accra in January this year. Lakeman Hussein Swale had worked with Tiger IPI on the number 12 expose on corruption in football in Ghana. His murder, as well as that of Saudi-born journalist Jamal Khashoggi, inspired the first Global Media Freedom Conference by the UK and Canada to rally governments around the world, including Ghana, to take urgent action to stop attacks on media practitioners. Here in Accra and in Ghana, Joy News has launched its own national campaign. But here's a recap of that conference in London and why we all need to defend media freedom. The event brought together delegates from over 100 countries, including journalists, academics, civil society groups championing media freedoms, as well as government representatives. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Chrystia Freeland, provided frightening statistics to underscore the need for the conference.
Today, journalism is difficult and dangerous work. UNESCO reports that last year alone, 99 members of the media were killed around the world. And by the end of last year, Reporters Without Frontiers says 348 journalists were in prison. In fact, the 4 deadliest recorded years for journalists have occurred within the past decade.
Conference co-host, the UK's Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, highlighted why journalists, though may make mistakes, are so important in any society.
The strongest safeguard against the dark side of power is accountability and scrutiny. And few institutions fulfill that role more effectively than a free media. Real accountability comes from the risk of exposure by a media that cannot be controlled or suborned. And the evidence for this is very clear. Of the 10 cleanest countries in the world, as ranked by Transparency International, 7 are also in the top 10 of the World Press Freedom Index. Meanwhile, of the 10 most corrupt countries, 4 are in the bottom 10 for media freedom. Now, powerful people value their reputations, so the sunlight of transparency is the greatest deterrent to wrongdoing.
He advised his colleague politicians around the world they are better off with a media that feels free to criticize governments.
For those of us who are sometimes on the receiving end of criticism, we should also reflect on the wisdom of Nelson Mandela, when he said, "The media are a mirror through which we see ourselves and others perceive us, warts, blemishes and all. Such criticism can only help us to grow by calling attention to those of our actions and omissions which do not measure up to our people's expectations."
The UK Special Envoy on Press Freedom, Amal Clooney, made the point that the defense of media freedom encompasses the regulatory framework governing the operations of media houses.
And the indictment against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has alarmed journalists at newspapers around the world, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the Guardian, because, as the editor of the Washington Post has put it, it, quote, criminalizes common practices in journalism that have long served the public interest. With many governments also insulting and threatening journalists and seeking to throttle media organizations through strict controls on ownership, licensing, and online activity, we have reached the point where there are few places in the world where journalists are not surveilled, harassed, disenfranchised, or subject to self-censorship.
Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah, who was at the head of the Ghana delegation, considered government's record on press freedom has suffered a dent in recent years.
Unfortunately, as the world goes through a period of attacks on media, Ghana in recent years has also experienced its share, despite our good track record. The worst being the cold-blooded murder of Ahmed Swale, believed to be connected with his work as an associate of the media organization Tiger IPI. Regrettably, our investigative agencies have not made much headway in arresting and punishing perpetrators, and of this, and other acts of intimidation. Indeed, it appears we took our media excellence and public tolerance for granted. But now, we have had to face up to the challenging and changing realities and do more. Abuse and attack on journalists cannot and must not be accepted. It must not only be condemned, but must be fought head-on.
The conference established a multi-million-dollar fund for the safety of journalists, a number of initiatives for the defense and protection of media freedom, including an international task force to help governments deliver on their commitment made at the conference, were also announced. So the UK and Canada have taken the lead in the defense of media freedom and managed to rally a good number of countries to come along. Politicians the world over would, however, not willingly pursue this cause unless their citizens also appreciate why this is of critical importance, so they could bring pressure to bear in ensuring that the right of the journalists to report facts freely and to defend, expose, and advance the truth without fear of retaliation, reprisal, violence, or imprisonment is guaranteed. Back home in Accra, I ask myself, do the citizens know that the role of the journalist is so important? That probably could be a good point to start. Israel Lying, Joy News. Right, so the question about do the citizens know why the role of the journalist is so critical is one question I'll be putting to veteran journalist Ben Efsing. He's one of those who campaign vigorously for the freedoms that we enjoy right now. We will be going to him in a bit. But as I indicated earlier, here in Ghana, we have launched, Joy News has launched a campaign to defend media freedoms, and we've had some key players in the media industry backing the campaign in full force as they highlight the dangers society opens itself up to if people do not champion media freedom. They have been highlighting the linkages between media freedom and the observation of your rights as a citizen of Ghana.
An exercise in perfect timing and a campaign worth supporting by all journalists in this country, because an attack against one journalist is an attack against all journalists. An attack against all journalists is an attack against our democracy. An attack against our democracy is an attack against the very soul and spirit of this nation. So as we speak, the soul and spirit of this nation are bleeding profusely. And we need to take practical steps to stanch the blood flow. This means coming together to punish the perpetrators of attacks against journalists, and for journalists not to lend themselves to easy attack, not to fall easy prey to attacks.
Okay. Right.
They should be ethically conscious and responsible.
One of the things that we want to salvage the soul of this particular country that we have. Because if you look at the people who beat up, yes, we have the state actors, but there are other people who are non-state actors as well. The major challenge we have is that when these things happen, that there's no punishment for it. So we need to ensure that the rules are implemented, that we need to ensure that we're defending. Because you see, no matter what happens, finally when your back is against the wall, the organization that you would run to is the media. So we all need to realize it, that when we don't defend the media's rights, we're just cutting our tongues and thinking that we have some meat to chew, but it's ourselves. Yeah. And we all need to work together in concert to ensure that this actually happens.
Must support, all Ghanaians must applaud. And at the end of the day, it is about defending our democracy, defending the lives of our people who don't have voices. The media constitute the voice for the voiceless. And I think that on this occasion, I have the singular honor and privilege to declare this most important campaign that defend media freedom duly launched, and I hope that we would all be on board to make it a success.
Right, so we're going over to veteran journalist Ben Efsing right now to put that question to him, the question that I earlier put out. Do the citizens know that the role of the journalist is so critical. Ben F. Singh is one of those who fought and campaigned vigorously for the freedoms that we enjoy right now. Thank you very much for making time to speak with us, Mr. F. Singh. Now, so I want to find out from you, do you think the citizens are aware what people like you had to campaign for so vigorously, to the extent that some of you went to jail, so that we can enjoy the democracy that we are enjoying right now?
Thank you. Good evening to our viewers. I think that you're asking me to speak bluntly, not as a Ghanaian diplomat. I don't think that majority of Ghanaians know. They don't have an idea. As at the 2010 census, 79.3% of Ghanaians were below 40 years of age. So for nearly 80%, the oldest was 8 years old when Lakeman was overthrown on December 31st, 1981. So just imagine the youthful nature of our population, Israel.
So for those people, I'd like you to jog their memories a bit. Tell them about some of the things you had to go through for us to enjoy the freedoms that we do enjoy now.
Well, for some of my colleagues like Kubakun, Kwesi Pratt, Akoto Ampao, Ya Graham, they spent a year, at times 2 years, without trial in various prisons. Mine was only 5 months, but was in solitary confinement. My wife was 8 months pregnant, and when I came out, the baby was 4 months old. The baby is now a big 32 years now. Most of the media, there was a PNDC law at that time that required that newspapers register every year. So if you do a lot of politicking, at the end of the year, you'll be denied license to work. That is why the magazine I was working for at that time, Israel West Africa Magazine, became like the local newspaper. We were carrying all the stories of harassment, torture of victims, and so on. Often they were seized, one is smuggled in, and we photocopy. So if you don't know how it happened, you will not value the freedom you have.
Now, Mr. Epson, I can...
And Israel, I must add that it... Please go on.
No, you go ahead.
You see, I must add that for all these names I've mentioned, it is to their credit that at that peak in time, during the PNDC era, when the law gave the president the power to detain you as long as he wished, all of us who have suffered would have gone out, sought refugee status, and enjoy life with our families. So the younger ones should remember that once we are all around, they should keep the freedom we have close to their chest so that it doesn't escape us again.
Now, Mr. Epson, I can imagine that this is one of the reasons why in the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, you find in there the freedom and independence of the media. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yes, I've done this job 45 years. I started when I was 17 years, 1974 in Accra Academy, and I'll be 62. So I'm speaking for somebody who loves my job. But I disagree with a portion of the Constitution that protects us. I think that for gatekeepers, news editor, Israel, you must have some form of background. As we speak now, there's an issue going on about architects. Architects, doctors, engineers, lawyers. When you come here, you will have to sit the professional exams. What I'm saying is that if somebody has a radio station, he goes to a funeral, the person is very articulate in the local language. Come and be my news editor. There must be standards which are maintained. I think that the media has come a long way, but if you look at the recent CDD survey, regrettably, the trust that the public has in the media is waning. And we must get our act together so that they continue to trust and appreciate the work we do.
We do appreciate that prompt, Mr. F. Singh. But before we actually let you go, I know that you've been through quite a bit and you have some horrific stories that for tonight, for the very first time, I'd like you to share with us about some of the things you had to go through, you and your colleagues had to go through.
Throughout my career, Israel, the most horrific time has not been being detained in solitary for 5 months. It has been to do with some of the things we see. And briefly, in 1986, apart from one coup attempt involving one Major Chumesi Ankara, working for West Africa Magazine and the BBC, I covered all the coup tries. And in 1996, there were about 6 or 8 people involving people like Tremajan, the brother of Captain Bwachijan, Mauli Goka, and others. Now, in course of the trial, there was always a lunch break. So I asked the warders that I want to have a chat with them because Mauli was 2 years ahead of me, my senior, and had told me that they were being tortured. One of the guards went to search the bathroom to find out if there was nothing hidden there, and he allowed me to go with them. Tremajan undressed his back, and he showed me scars that his back was cut and given to Mauli Goka to chew. One of the accused persons, who was a twin, so we call him, I think, Penyon or Kakra, was always in cloth. And I asked him why, and he removed the cloth. We do apologies to our viewers, I have to say it. His male organ had been put in fire. And there was always pus and blood oozing, so he had to put on cloth with bandage. Now, Mauli Goka told me that, Ben, if you write this, you'll be in trouble. And I said, Mauli, I'm already in trouble. If I don't write it, one day I will regret it. And 17 years on Israel, at the National Reconciliation, people would have thought it's me and Kweku Baku who had cooked it up. Because when the gentleman whose male organ had been put in fire asked me whether they would kill them, I said yes. And he started weeping. And Mauli explained that he had met, they were in the cell with Kweku Baku in prison, and he had asked Kweku Baku the same question. Kweku gave him the same answer with the same reason. And mind you, there was no mobile phone at that time, and I wasn't allowed to visit Kweku and co. Fast forward to National Reconciliation. If this had not been written, and many people did not know. So I told the accused persons that if I wrote the story from my interaction with them during their lunch break, they would be denied the opportunity to talk to their relatives. So I told them that, look, the following morning, Treme, you undress in the open courtroom. In the afternoon, I had the tribunal permission, took a shot of them sitting with their clothes on in the tribunal and sent it to West Africa Magazine. The following morning, I went early, and after exchange of the pre-arranged code, Chairman removed his shirt and showed it to the public. I must say, for 6 months after that, I could not eat meat, even fish. If fish was being prepared, if I see blood, I would not eat it. For me, it will be with me for a long time.
Mr. Epstein, that's quite a story, and I'm shocked, actually. But thank you very much for sharing the story with us. You're watching Joy News Prime. My name is Israel. We're taking a break. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back to Joy News Prime, and let's get on with the rest of the stories now. So, the Inspector General of Police, David Asante Apiatu, is no more the Inspector General of Police. President Akufo-Addo has named James Opon-Buenu as Acting Inspector General of Police until a substantive one is appointed, according to a statement issued Monday, July 22, by the Communications Director at the Jubilee House, Eugene Ahin. The President has directed the IGP, David Asante Apiatu, to hand over to Mr. Opon-Buenu with immediate effect. And the statement reads, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on Monday, 22nd July 2019, directed the Inspector General of Police, Mr. David Asante Apiatu, to proceed on leave with immediate effect, pending his retirement from the Ghana Police Service on Wednesday, August 14, 2019. The President thanked him for his many years of service to the country and wished him well in his retirement. Mr. President Akufo-Addo has asked the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. James Opon-Buenu, to act as IGP until a substantive IGP is appointed in accordance with the Constitution. And Adam Bona, a security analyst, joins us via Skype to give us more insight into this. Now, I know that you have done extensive work on who is likely to be appointed the next IGP. Now we have James Opon-Buenu, who is one of the people who was tipped to become IGP, now being named acting. Are we to expect that he will be confirmed in the position, or we can expect a new appointment to be made?
Well, good evening, and good evening to your viewers. It's a very tricky question. It will be difficult to, at the moment, read the mind of the president, because then what my expectations, if you ask me, would have been for the president to be straightforward with us and tell us who the next IGP was going to be. But be it is made, the president decided otherwise, that he wanted the deputy IGP, who is not the acting IGP, to be in an acting position for the time being. And so it will be difficult to preempt or predict what the president is going to do next. And so I would say that it depends on the president. You know, the current acting IGP and the person of Opon-Buenu, his retirement, he retired a year ago and he was given a 1-year extended contract, which in itself is expiring I think in October. It's expiring in October. And so what it therefore means is that it depends on what the president is looking forward to, what the president wants to see. The president may decide to appoint any of the others to be the substantive IGP, or confirm him to be the acting IGP, if only the president and his lieutenants wants to extend the contract for James Opon-Buenu, from where he is now. Yeah.
All right. Now, one of the things that many people find curious is the fact that the IGP, as it's a David Asante Apiatu, has, what, about a week to exit? So
2 weeks?
Yes. So why wasn't he just allowed to stay on to serve the rest of his tenure, and then he goes away?
There is a lot to it than probably we are being made to know. You know, there's been, I mean, there are a few things, some of them you can't go into, but those that would come publicly, others are aware of, includes his executive secretary who resigned, you know, voluntarily. When he hits 50, he resigned to go and contest on the ticket of the NDC in the Upper West region, you know, my home region. And also this Gregory issue, the brouhaha surrounding the Gregory issue. And so for me, these are the two things that openly everyone knows, but there might be others that some of us probably are aware of that we might not want to put across. And so for me, the president should have waited, if you ask me. It's just 2 weeks. Do him that honest to allow him to retire, you know, quietly into his retirement home. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam Bona. Adam Bona is a security analyst, and he mentioned the case of Gregory Afoko. Indeed, outgoing Inspector General of Police, David Asante-Pietu, and the Director General of Police, CID, COP Mami Tuado Dankwa, have for the third time failed to show up at an Accra High Court where they have been cited for contempt. At the two previous sittings, the Judge Justice Jennifer Dodu had indicated she would only deliver her ruling if the two officers were present. The court was on Monday left with no choice but to adjourn the case once again as the two failed to show up. There's more in the following report.
The two top police officers have already missed two court proceedings. Justice Jennifer Dodu, who was displeased with the non-appearance of the top officials, said she would have issued a warrant for their arrest if they were ordinary citizens. She further warned her decision will only be read once the two officers are before her in court. The court had previously been informed they were out of the country, leaving the judge to settle on July 22 to deliver the ruling. Lawyers for Gregory Afoko say the police simply refused to obey the court's decision to grant bail. As at 3 p.m. on Monday, when the case was called to be heard in chambers, the IGP and the CID Director General were both not present. Joy News sources say the case has been adjourned to October 10. Lawyers in the case have also been asked to file written addresses to the court.
You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break, but still ahead in the bulletin, we have been having this conversation about defending media freedoms, and indeed Joy News has launched that campaign today. Now we're going to be hearing from Charles Reku Drobe, who tells us we really don't have any freedom as the media. Stay tuned in. Welcome back to Joy News Prime, and we're returning to our theme on defending media freedoms. One of the questions I posed at the beginning of this bulletin was to find out if the public is aware, or the citizens are aware, that the role of the journalist is so critical. We went out there on the streets and we spoke to some members of the public to find out from them if they are aware of this. And we also got them to share with us some of their stories regarding their interactions with the media and how the media has played a role in the development of this country. Let's hear from some of the members of society.
In a developing country, we all see a media house as an important area of our development, actually. And in any country where the media house is broken down or is not working at all, then it means the country has got no future. So I see it to be a very important tool in the development of our country. I think they are playing a pivotal role in our community.
So they are playing a pivotal role in our communities. What would you do tomorrow? You wake up and the news is that your favorite media house has been unlawfully shut down.
In fact, if that happens to me, if I will see that I've lost a lot, because I could see that then the development of the nation has been standstill, or it has been stagnated.
As compared to the previous years whereby they have no say, because of certain laws they make that the media cannot come out to voice certain things out. But now the media is doing very well because they have let us know, our politicians, how they are going, whether they are doing well or they are not doing well. The media has let us, or the whole nation, know that this is what is happening in the country. Without the media, all those things may not know. So the media is doing well, to my opinion. It's very powerful. They are doing, and I'm expecting that they do better. They should continue. We will encourage them. We will only advise them to do more. Because look at the corruption in the country. Without the media, you may not know.
The media is a very necessary tool in governance. It's very important that we have a media that is not scared to be reprimanded or silenced, you know. So I think in a democracy like ours, the media is very important, and we need it. Without the media, I mean, then there will be a blackout on news and things that the citizenry are supposed to know. It's the media that we learn a lot from, we hear a lot from. For me, if I want to find out the truth, there are particular news media that I will tend to, and I'm hoping that, and I believe that that is where I'll get the genuine story from. And then I'll shun others because I don't believe them. Every now and then they put out news that you eventually find out that that is not the real story.
So what would your initial reaction be if these credible news outlets you just mentioned, tomorrow you wake up and the news is that these media houses have been unlawfully shut down?
I mean, that is very worrying. You know, that trend in our country now is very worrying for me as a citizen, not a spectator. As a citizen, it becomes very worrying when, you know, like, let me just be specific, like the NCA goes and shuts down radio stations. Yes, they have a job to do. But when you do a job like that, and then the trend is like all the stations you shut down are on the side of or are affiliated to a certain party, there's a tendency for people to believe that then there's a hidden agenda.
There's a road in front of a Lakeman hospital. And you see, that road had been a problem for us for a while. And as Adom TV was able to organize that program for the public, as soon as public air is heard, now go there and see. Government has even organized the contractor and is seriously working on the road, that particular road. And if there be not the media, I don't think the road will now be give attention.
All right, so we're staying with the theme on the defending media freedoms. So we're here in talking about defending media freedoms, but we've been speaking with Dr. Charles Reku-Brobe. Many of you will know him as an energy analyst, but he has been at the forefront of fighting for media freedom a few decades back. Now, he is the founder of the first private radio station, Radio I. It was about 25 years ago. Indeed, on November 19 this year, it will be 25 years since that radio station was founded. He feels, or he believes, that the media is really not free, as we've always believed. Let's hear him and why he says so.
To be honest with you, press freedom, we've never had the press freedom. I mean, people will be surprised.
We've never had a press.
No, we'll be surprised. You see, you got to have freedom from something. What are you freeing yourself from? And if you look at Article 162, it said freedom of the press is guaranteed.
Yes.
Now, what do we mean by freedom? We are confusing two things. There is no doubt that we have pluralism. There's about 400 stations or media broadcasting of various sorts. So clearly there's pluralism.
Doesn't that equate to freedom?
No, at all. And there is also free speech of a certain level, that people can speak their mind relatively freely until the recent developments. Now, those two things have confused the whole thing and said, there is media freedom or press freedom. There is not. It reminds me of a Dubois and Hines culture of silence. You know, the government of the party that believed in the rule of law and the freedom of speech and expression and Kabi and everything is inadvertently, because I have no evidence to suggest that it has taken specific divisions, but it's inadvertently recreating a culture of silence in Ghana. Because if you don't condemn and you do not reprobate,
that you're using culture of silence in 2019, that you're hearing echoes of it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because
that's such a chilling thing to say.
Because I'm sorry, I need to be very chilling.
Right, so we're going to bring you the full interview on PM Express, which comes up after this, well, at 9 p.m. So do stay tuned for that. Now, contractors of the Lakeman Road have started an upgrade of the stretch, which residents say has caused miscarriage, respiratory diseases and discomfort. This comes on the back of an announcement by the Information Minister, Kujopon Nkrumah, that a new contractor was mobilizing to site. Maxwell Agbagba reports on what he found when he visited the Lakeman Road.
Whether rain or shine, their discomfort was simply unbearable. After many days of inactivity on this 7.5-kilometer Lakeman stretch, we can say that some real work and real action has started here. I've been speaking to President of the Residents Association, Emmanuel Metal Nunu.
First of all, I thank Multimedia a lot because you have a very big platform and you've helped to create a lot of awareness. And I think this is being done. I just pray that it's not a 9-day wonder, because as citizens and residents of Teshin, we are going to hold the government accountable and make sure that the road is fixed.
Well, the roads minister who went inspecting commencement of work on the Lakeman Road, where Joy News mounted a week-long campaign for it to be fixed, says it should be done in 6 months.
Journalists can detract my attention. I work with journalists to help our country, and I'm giving 6 months, and by 6 months time I will come here with you and follow me, put pressure on me. 6 months time from today, and I'm telling the people of the Jokuku constituency, it's not only this road they haven't seen anything.